What's going on, everyone? It's Adam and Craig with Grandstand Golf. And along with the rest of the world, 2020 was a year to forget for some golfers. We're taking a look at golfers who struggled in 2020, but who we think can bounce back in 2021.
Yeah. So starting off here, we are doing this according to our own criteria. So if you agree or disagree, let us know below. If you want these guys to bounce back, give us a like, and we'll know that everyone else is cheering with us for these guys.
Absolutely.
Our criteria. People with prolonged success. We're not looking at people who just had a year going, prior to 2020 where they were good and then it was down year, sort of the 1 year wonder type.
Right.
No long-term decline players, whether they're older or just for whatever reason their skills have been deteriorating over a longer period of time.
So, spoiler alert, maybe not Jordan Spieth with this criteria. He's been declining for a little bit more than a year, 2020.
Yeah, we don't want to beat the Spieth dead horse, but let us know if you think he's a good bounce back candidate this year.
He's deserving, yeah, for sure.
And lastly, this is who we want to bounce back. So I think we're a little bit of fans of these type of guys, or are all guys on our list. And so without any more further ado, let's hop into it.
Let's do it. So number 5, Gary Woodland. So prior to 2020, what do we know of Gary Woodland? He's 2019 U.S. Open champ, Pebble Beach, dramatic win there, great win for his career. He peaked at number 12 in 2019 in the official world golf ranking, so he was right up there with kind of the top echelon of players. And he did that by being strong off the tee. That's kind of what he's known for. He's really good off the tee. He had some good length, but he kind of dominated off the tee and got that U.S. Open win. So what happened in 2020? All the way to 12th. He ended the year 17th, ended the year 2019 17th in the world. He fell all the way to 39th. 2020 was the first year since 2012 without a first or, and that's just not a select few event. That's 19 events he played in. And it didn't get better near the end of 2020. He went miscut, 72nd, withdraw, miscut. That includes U.S. Open and Masters where he missed the cut. So he really fell off in 2020, and his stats prove it. He was no longer dominant off the tee. He's 93rd in strokes gained off the tee.
Yeah.
So he really fell off.
So the fall off is real. Why should we believe in the comeback?
So why do we think he's a bounce back candidate? Despite the poor 2020, he hasn't really slid that far down the official world golf rankings. He's still in the top 50. He has his exemptions. So with his U.S. Open wins, he's got these exemptions through 2024. He's got 5 years to this. So he's a candidate that can...
And 5 years, and I think it's also back. 2 years of almost like a very high level, high priority in terms of what tournaments he gets to choose. So he really does get to build his schedule still.
Absolutely. He hasn't gone that far. So it's easier to make up for him. He's also on the podcast, but Beyond the Clubhouse, and he was talking about taking some time off. He hasn't been healthy. I mentioned that withdrawal in 2020. He had a torn labrum. It's hip issues. He hasn't been healthy in 2020, and that kind of results in an easy bounce back candidate. Once you can get healthy, fix a couple things, get dominant off the tee again, I think it's going to be an easy bounce back for Gary Woodland. It looks like we're going to see him late January at the American Express tournament. He's still within the top 50, so he's going to get all these exemptions, the WGCs, the majors. He has those. I think it's a player that can bounce back fairly easily in 2021.
Yeah, and obviously any golfer, health is a huge issue for, but I think these guys who really hang their hat on the ball striking and the driver, I think it's even more so once they are, they start to lose health. I think it just, the one thing that is their edge disappears.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, number 4, Francesco Molinari. So, I don't know if we need to get too far into his resume because to me it's pretty elite. He's 2018 Open champion. He's got 10 professional wins worldwide. He peaked as high as 5th in the world golf rankings. That's 2018. His Ryder Cup record, if you want to get into less so the tour play and the Ryder Cup play, he was 5-0 in 2018. Him and Tommy Fleetwood were the core of that European side. They beat Tiger Woods, they beat Patrick Reed, they beat DeChambeau, they beat Justin Thomas. Like they essentially were the A team for the Europeans. And
fairly
Yeah,
dominant.
it was dominant. He ended up 5-0 in that Ryder Cup. So
Oh, that's a great
yeah,
record.
so I think he's a little bit, compared to some of the other guys on the list, he's a little bit like what happened in 2020. He didn't play. Like, we didn't see him.
Yeah,
He was
exactly.
the golfer, I think, that was out the longest of anyone. He didn't play in the PGA. He didn't play in the US Open. He did finally come back just before the Masters. But so we saw him play 7 tournaments. 6 of them were tournaments with cuts. He missed 5 of those 6 cuts. So when we did see him play, he wasn't playing at a very high level.
So the majority of that is the pre-COVID break, right? Where he missed, I think, 4 cuts or so. And then in his second start back from the break, which is very late, I think it was the Houston Open, he ended up 15th.
Yeah, so he did the one tournament he did make the cut in. He did have a 15th. That was right before the Masters.
Right.
You know, it's hard, I think, also to understand how hard it is to get in a rhythm for these guys when they are playing so little. But, you know, he started 2020 18th in the World Golf Rankings. He's cascaded, you know, whether through not play or through poor play, all the way down to 112th. That was at the end of 2020. He's now a little bit even further down. He's 123rd, I think, because, you know, good results he's had have fallen off the back end of what they count.
Right, of course.
But yeah, so he's fallen a long ways down. Why do we still believe he can come back? Why do we believe in him as a bounce back? I think that, to me, similar to Woodland, he's got exemptions. He's got exemptions through 2023. But this year, what's the key for him? You know, we got a delayed Ryder Cup happening this year. As of right now, he does not qualify for it.
Yeah, of course.
Patrick Harrington's going to get to make some captain's choice. There's still a lot of time for him to get points to qualify for it. But he really has to show Patty that his game deserves to be there.
If you want a captain selection, you can't just
get there on your laurels. It can't just be based on past play. You got to show that you have some kind of form. When he was at the height of his game, he was a top 10 guy off the tee in terms of strokes gained. You know, never the longest, but definitely in the upper sort of third distance wise. And then you combine that with really good accuracy. So he was one of these guys that just had a really good driver. And ball striking aside from that, you know, really good approach play as well. We've seen that fall off a bit, but it's so hard with the limited amount we've seen him. I think that's what we're really going to see as he gets tournaments in here. We're going to really see him, if he is going to bounce back, we're going to see that in the ball striking.
Yeah, I really like Molinari at number 4 here. I think it is kind of an asterisk because we haven't seen that much of him. So it's kind of like an asterisk bounce back because, yeah, it was poor play, but it really wasn't a lot of it. There's a lot of different circumstances at play.
He was pretty open. He was moving his family from the UK to the US. And once they were here during COVID, during the pandemic, he really wanted to make sure that everyone was getting settled. So his priorities were just not necessarily focused on golf. And that's all right.
Which I think we can completely respect. We're excited to see what he can do when he starts playing full time again, especially with things like the Olympics coming up, Ryder Cup. I mean, it's a big year in 2021.
Yeah. And speaking of Olympics, I think that might be relevant.
Speaking of Olympics, number 3, Justin Rose. So, I mean, prior to 2020, what do we know of Justin Rose? Former world number 1 as recently, Craig, as April 2019.
It feels a lot further back than that.
It feels a lot further back. But April 2019, he was still number 1 player in the world. US Open champion 2013. He's got that major win. And as we just mentioned, the Olympics are this year. He won the Olympic gold medal in Rio in 2016. So he's very, very decorated career. He is one of the older guys on the list. He did turn 40 this year. So it is a little bit different for a bounce back. But 24 professional wins, including US Open, including the Olympic gold medalist. He's just fallen off a little bit. So excellent resume. What happened in 2020? In 2020, it's the first year that he hasn't got a worldwide win since 2009. That's 10 straight years where he has got a win. And a really stellar record of consistently winning. We talk about DJ's record. We talk about other players' record. A whole decade he went getting at least 1 win on the year. The other remarkable thing that happened in 2020, he played in 19 events and he missed the cut in 9. That's a 47% missed cut rate. If you look at his previous years, so 2019, it was 8.3. 2018, it was 4.3.
Yeah.
So he's been a remarkably consistent golfer, and then just out of nowhere kind of missed half his cuts
Yeah.
in
And I
2020.
think, if you want to make the argument, okay, he didn't win for the first time since 2000, he probably played less events. Okay, but he still missed the cut in almost half them. So, it's not just that he wasn't getting starts, the normal amount of starts he would get. His play was just down.
And it is poor play. So what does it mean statistically? What do we see statistically from Justin Rose? Over the past 10 years, he's never ranked outside the top 15 in strokes gained total. And again, a decade, a win every year, and he's been in the top 15 strokes gained total. In 2020, he ranked 73rd.
And that's not a niche statistic. That's probably the number one indicator of how someone's playing.
Yeah. So it just, something happened in 2020. It's a weird year for everyone, but Justin Rose really didn't have a good year.
So why do you believe still?
Okay, let's look ahead. We've talked about exemptions. He has those exemptions. He's got the Masters. He's got the PGA. He's got the Open. So he's going to be there. He's going to be in these major tournaments, and I think he can still do it. He ended the year 35th in the official world golf rankings. He started 8th in 2019, so he's still in that top 50 to get a lot of those exemptions. And then I think there's that extra motivation. So we've talked about it. We've kind of teased a little bit. Ryder Cup, he's not a shoo-in. The European team is something to strive for, and I think all these guys want to be in. He is by no means a shoo-in to make the Ryder Cup. And Olympic motivation, he's currently ranked 5th for representing Great Britain in the Olympics behind Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, and Paul Casey.
And if it's not clear, every country, assuming you have enough guys high enough on the rankings, you get a max of 4 guys. So even if he's within the top 60, I believe, that you still need to be in the top 4 for your country.
Absolutely. So off year in 2020, he's still got a top 10 at the PGA Championship. He got a top 25 at the Masters. So he's still kind of that big game hunter. I still think he can get the wins. He's going to have more wins in his future. I think this first part of 2021, though, is going to kind of define his next few years here. He's got to shape up a little bit to get into the Olympics, get into the Ryder Cup, and kind of prove that in his early 40s, he's still going to be that dominant golfer.
Yeah. And I guess, speaking of, we're on a bit of a streak of European Ryder Cup players. Number 2, Rory McIlroy, the 31-year-old.
So this is interesting. Number 4 in the world needs a bounce back. So I'm curious to see where you go with this. Let's
hear it. I just to briefly, if you're not aware of who Rory is, we've got our 4-time major champion, 28 professional wins worldwide. He is number 1 in the world golf rankings as recently as June 2020. So, why is he a bounce back guy? If you were to say this in February last year, it would sound ridiculous. He had 4, let me make sure that's right, 4 straight top 5s to start the 2020 season. And, if you're looking at the PGA season, the 1920 PGA season, he had a ridiculous string through the first part of that season. But then COVID hit in March, and he just fell off a cliff. He went, starting right back after the COVID restart, he had 8 finishes outside the top 10. To give you a little context for what that means for Rory McIlroy, that hasn't happened since 2008. He was 18 years old in 2008. So,
a lot of professionals go on stretches for 2 months where they don't get a top 10.
Rory does not so much. Yeah. Similar to some of the other guys we've mentioned, he didn't have any wins. He didn't have any runner-ups. So a guy like Rory, he's won over $50 million just on the PGA Tour. So he's going to make his money regardless, but he's playing for legacy. He wants wins. He wants runner-ups. I guess he wants wins more than he wants runner-ups, but it's still an indication of whether he's in contention in those tournaments.
Right.
And, why should we have faith that he's going to bounce back?
Why are we optimistic?
So first off, he's Rory McIlroy. What's his path back to number 1? I think the key to think about is the difference at the top there. It's such a nice edge. Like Dustin Johnson maybe 4 or 5 months ago when he was withdrawing from the 3M, putting up 80, I think, at that Memorial. He was playing horrid golf. So it doesn't take much for these guys to go from dominant to not. I think with Rory, when we see him playing his best, his approach game, especially from 150 yards out, is, if not the best in the world, like right up there in the top 5. And it's fallen down a little bit in terms of that showing up every week. And really, we've had 2 fall majors this year. We've got 4 more coming up. He needs to be stacking up some majors here. It's been since 2014. We did see him get a couple top 10s late, at the US Open and at the Masters. He hasn't really. I was looking back, when's the last time he seriously contended in a major? I would say probably the Open Championship 2018. So we do need to see him. I think we're going to see him back in form. Everyone knows his wife had a baby this year. So I think he's going to settle into that father life a bit. Get everything, whether it's travel or practice, get all of that worked out. And I think once we see that, we're going to see him get onto another one of these tears that we really see Rory go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to see that as golf fans. I think the 2021 courses obviously match up well for him. He's going back to the PGA where he's won before that tournament. But it is kind of interesting. So I think I rostered him. He was my one and done for the 2020 Masters. I was scared on Thursday, but his Friday to Sunday performance there was pretty remarkable. Probably the best of the field. I don't know if he quite eclipsed DJ, but his Thursday just almost shot himself out of it. But there's good things to take away from that. But it's interesting. We talk about the world golf rankings. It's not a perfect rankings, but how far he's fallen from DJ at number 1 right now. DJ's averaging 12.5 points on there, and Rory's at 6.99. So Rory's more of a couple months away from being 8th in the world than he is to being number 1. Like there's a significant margin. It's not just 1 to 4 and 4 to 8.
The gap between really him and 8 is not very big. I think that's also the gap with DJ. I think that also could be because he slammed on the accelerator right about the same time Rory was fading.
A little bit. Yeah. But I mean, excellent candidate. A bounce back is different to every single person. I think him getting close to number 1, I think for sure a major would be considered a bounce back year for Rory.
So, one left on our top 5 here. Who you got?
Number 1 bounce back candidate for 2021, Rickie Fowler. So let's talk about Rickie a little bit in his history. His biggest win came at the 2015 Players Championship. We know he doesn't have that major yet. He has won 9 times in his career. The most recent win was the 2019 Waste Management Open. I feel like he gets a lot of flack for not winning that big one, but he's extremely balanced and consistent player. Over the last since 2013, looking at every single stroke gain category, he has been positive. So he doesn't last off the tee. We know he's one of the best putters in the world. Even on his off years, he's still one of the best putters. He's good around the green. Since 2013, he hasn't been negative at all in any single strokes gain category for a season. Absolutely remarkable. From the last 6 years, he's been in that world golf ranking between 5 and 15. So he's been right in that mix. A lot of people thought he's going to make that jump into the top 5 and kind of stay there. He didn't make that jump, and then 2020 just kind of threw a curveball in everything.
Yeah, so what happened in 2020?
Well, first off, he dropped outside the top 50 in the official world golf rankings. So this is where he becomes, like we talked about with Molinari, with these other guys with the exemptions, the top 50 for Rickie to lose that is significant. He started 23rd in 2020 and he dropped all the way to 53rd. He's got exactly 0 top 10s since the COVID.
Yeah, and I think just real quick on the top 50, if you look at his ranking on the World Golf Rankings, he also has, I think, a couple wins and a couple third places that within the next couple months, those are going to fall off the back end of counting. So the fall,
Waste Management would have been February 2019.
So the fall could just be starting in terms of where it's going to, in terms of the rankings.
Absolutely. So 0 top 10s since the COVID restart. His last top 10 on the PGA Tour came at the 2020 Century Tournament of Champions early in January in 2020. We know that's a limited field, so I mean that's kind of an asterisk around it. He hasn't really been there at all in any PGA Tour events. So what's happening? I mean, much discussed coaching change, swing coach John Tillery he's working with. They're trying to make it more efficient, more repeatable. The results aren't there. So what do the statistics say? He is a little bit more accurate off the tee, a couple few percentage points up, but otherwise there's either no change or a little bit down. Green regulations a little bit down. Strokes getting off the tee a little bit down. Strokes getting approach a little bit down.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been good.
I think the reality is always a little bit that's the case when people are on the fly making swing changes. I think it can take a while when they have to show up and play competitive golf. It can take a little while for that to settle in and translate.
For sure. So why is Rickie the number one breakthrough candidate in 2021? Well, that swing change, will he break through? Will it all kind of click together? It finally matches up. Everything comes together. It is kind of efficient and repeatable. Because I think if that happens, we're going to kind of see him try to climb again. But going into the Masters, this is much talked about at the end of 2020. He's played in 41 consecutive majors. A remarkable feat of consistency. But he's not yet qualified for the 2021 Masters tournament. Him dropping out of the top 50, it means he doesn't have an invite. So he has until, I think, late March to climb back into that.
Essentially, I think it's the week before the tournament that he needs to be into the top 50 or have a win in that time.
Or a win. So either a win or a bunch of high up finishes. It looked like from his social media, we might not see him till a Farmers Insurance late January at Torrey Pines. So we might not see it. I think there's got to be a little bit more urgency from Rickie here. I don't know if there's other health issues or perhaps if he can come back and just come back strong, great. But he's got to tie a few of these high finishes together.
Health issues, endorsements, obligations, you never know.
But I think Rickie is the number one because he has it's the scariest. He doesn't have those exemptions. He doesn't have those automatic qualifiers. He's outside the top 50, and he has been playing unlike Molinari. So it is going to be interesting to see what 2021 brings for Rickie Fowler.
Yeah, it seems, with Rickie, I think it's something so many people want to see too. Similar, I think, to Jordan Spieth, although the fall for Spieth has been a little bit longer and more pronounced. But Rickie, it's sort of like, it feels like if we can't have that bounce back this year, it could be... maybe will we ever see Rickie at the level we saw him at? Yeah,
exactly. Before going way off the map, can he just quickly come back? That's what we need to see from Rickie.
Okay, so agree, disagree? Do you think these guys are going to bounce back? Let us know below. Yeah. And as always, like, subscribe. Tell us if you want to see this more of this kind of content.
Yeah, please if you'd like this kind of content. We want to do a few more of these type of shows early in 2021 to send out to you guys. We really enjoy them. So yeah, subscribe, and let us know what you think.
Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.